Everyone wants to know what a good deal on a car is, but the answer seems to be more difficult than you think. Everybody has a different answer. Should you ask for invoice? Should you ask your friends and family? When it comes down to it, here at Delivered, we negotiate deals for a living. Our goal is to figure out what a good deal on a car is. And because there's no simple roadmap, the only way we can do it is by actually negotiating car deals. And the good news is we do a lot of them, over 150 on a monthly basis. So we're very familiar on what a good deal is and what a bad deal is. So let's go through all the deals on Kias because some of the deals might shock you. Let me give you guys the warning before we even start this with any single Kia. Kia likes to price their cars. They don't have a lot of markup and they don't have a lot of money that they get back from the manufacturer. A lot of the times when dealerships say there's not a lot of money from MSRP to invoice, a lot of the times they work at Kia. So understand that Kia is not going to have the same room as other brands. Most brands have a lot of room. A lot of dealerships in the Kia world actually mark up cars with add-ons and unnecessary fees because there might only be $800 to $1,000 in markup on some of these cars. Kia Soul, depending on the trim level, this can vary. $1,000 to $2,300 off is what we should be getting on this car. You're probably not going to see much more than that. You're not going to see any less than that. But I mean, if you like a car that's driven by a hamster, go for it. Kia Seltos, very similar car, $1,000 to $3,000 off. Now, anytime we're talking about discounts, I want to remind you that we are not talking about cars with rebates. Rebates are additional. So if you get a $3,000 discount, $3,000 plus rebates. Realistically, $1,000 to $2,000 is a little bit more typical on this car. Looking at the Sportage, now this one's gonna have a little bit more room. We're getting closer to 7 to 8% off on a lot of these cars. But if we're looking for a hybrid model, the hybrids on all the Kias are way more desirable. They're less manufactured and the deals just aren't there. Realistically, getting a hybrid Sportage right around $200 to $2,500 off is a great deal in today's market. You always want to try to achieve more, but realistically, that is what we're seeing in today's world. Kia Sorento, very same as the Kia Sportage, just the bigger car. Now, when it comes down to Kia, one thing that I like to tell people when we're looking at the Kia brand as a whole is Kia makes a good car, but people don't love some of the reliability concerns. Some people have heard engine concerns, cars catching on fires, cars getting stolen. When it comes down to Kia, what I always say is don't treat it like a Toyota or a Honda in reliability. Treat it more like you're buying a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW. Great technology, but you kind of go in with it with the inherent risk that the car could break down. That's how I want most people to think, but 5 to 7% is what we normally achieve on this car. Kia Telluride. Now, a lot of dealerships do this car a little bit different. I've seen close to 10% off depending on the trim. Now, with Kia and Hyundai, the higher the trim, the closer to 10% ever you're gonna get. For example, a base Telluride, you might get 5 to 7% off. But if you go a fully loaded out Telluride, there's enough markup in it that you can get close to 8 to 10% off. Now, when it comes down to this car, know that if you are getting low APR financing, the deals are gonna be a little bit less than if you are financing through Kia. It's how their dynamic works. Understand you also get additional rebates if you take the higher rate. So I always say compare, do you want the low APR or do you want the additional rebates? It's always a good idea to get those additional rebates, even if you're paying cash, because you can always pay that loan off in 30 days. Now, the Kia Carnival is a tricky car. Now, the minivan market or the multi-purpose vehicle is a very unique car. And what I say about Kia's multi-purpose vehicle, or let's be real, it's a minivan, is it has great technology. Honestly, I think it's the best technology car out of all the minivans segment. But it was fully redesigned and you just don't know the future of the reliability, especially on the hybrid. A lot of people are concerned about the hybrid. So I always say, just like a Mercedes, take it with a little bit of a risk, but honestly, it's a great car. When it comes down to it, discounts on the hybrid. If you're in the South, sometimes discounts are MSRP on these cars, but realistically, our goal is always to shoot. We open up our radius in these cars and the worst case scenario deal we're getting is best case scenario, we're getting around $2,500 off. Worst case, we're getting about $1,000 off. If you limit your radius, you are probably going to pay above MSRP on this car. It is that hot, especially on the hybrids. And the gas model, a little bit more leeway, but the hybrids are hot on these cars and availability just isn't there. Now, if you're buying a hybrid, just as a whole, just as a recap, remember the discounts aren't nearly as hot. You're going to get closer to 5 to 7%, maybe even less. 1,000 to 2,000 can sometimes be an attainable deal. Understand that if you're shopping with 20 different dealerships and nobody's getting there, it's because there's not as much markup in a Kia. Now, anytime we're talking about EVs, I always say the best way to do an EV is to lease it, not buy it. And that's one of the beautiful things about Kias is some of the lease deals you can get are incredible. Now, you either love or hate the designs of their EVs. They are great, but the lease deals are where these cars get incredible. Obviously, you can get the rebate, which by the time we film this and put this out, the rebate may not exist due to the new administration. We'll have to wait and see. But realistically, you should be able to get close to 7 to 10% off on every single electric vehicle, the EV6 and the EV9. The EV9 is one of my favorite third row SUVs. When I saw this car at the Chicago Auto Show when it was unveiled, I was like, this is pretty darn impressive. Now, when it comes down to it, there's not many third row SUVs that compete with this car. Now, I know there's been reliability issues. It's kind of a common trend when it comes down to these vehicles, but when it comes down to it, if you're looking for a third row SUV EV, there's really nothing that compares. Okay, going through the sedans. First off, Kia Forte. There's not much markup in these cars at all. What a lot of these new brands doing is they're having basically minimal markup so they can advertise a really low price. Think about the Nissan Versa, the Kia Soul, and also the Forte. Forte, $1,000 to $1,700 off can be a good deal on this car. Nothing really that crazy. As we go on to the Kia K4 and the K5. These are very similar cars. They're a little bit harder to get, but great vehicles. They're fun to drive. They're great interiors. When it comes down to it, discounts are going to vary between $2,000 to about $3,500. Oh, you're not going to see much more than that. You can get 10% off on some of these cars. We have seen in December getting $4,000 off. We haven't seen that in January. As the months go on, the discounts might be crazier, but I would expect closer to about a $1,500 to a $2,500 discount versus everything else. So those are all the Kias. Kias is one of the most confusing brands when it comes down to rebates. The best rule of thumb is if you don't know what to do, just talk to enough different dealerships. You talk to 15, 20 dealerships, you're going to find out really quick what's a good deal and what's not. Understand the higher the trim, the better the discount. The lower the trim, much lower of a discount, not only in dollar amount, but percentage wise. Hopefully this helps. And what brand do you want to see next?